Welcome to Growth Happens in the Dirt by Katie Jolly, a journey through brain injury recovery and the science of healing. Chapter 13, Part 3. More referrals. I was referred to yet another specialist, a leading brain and spine specialist in the country. But this time I was prepared, sending through an email with my questions, and I took my husband with me to the appointment. We travelled 2 hours to see him, and he was 10 minutes late, even though we were the first client. Once again, this doctor asked me to recount the entire year's story of the 3 rocks and all my symptoms. He never even used my name. I was a number on his worksheet. I did a series of tests, then he sat me down, acknowledged I had a disc bulge, then commented it was nothing to worry about at all. Then he shook my hand and tried to get me out the door as fast as he could. When I asked him about the numbness in my hand, he said, "You need to meditate, do some yoga and relax. It will heal in time." We were promptly ushered out the door. We had driven 2 hours to see this man after a year of hell, recovering from the brain injury. I did a 4-hour round trip to hear him say, "Don't worry, do yoga." I burst out laughing in the car. My husband was confused. "Are you happy? Good result?" I laughed hysterically again. We've driven all this way for him to tell me to do more yoga, which I already do. And he didn't tell me why any of my symptoms are still there. I've got a Google PhD in the C5, C6 disc issue. I know that's why I'm getting the symptoms. And he's dismissed me like I'm a teenager with a zit on a date. "What would you have liked to have happened?" my husband asked. I fumed. "Read the case notes, asshole. Use my name. Explain to me what the MRI means and tell me why the symptoms are happening and what I can do to fix them. That's all." My husband reached for my hand. "Well, at least you don't have to have surgery." As a naturopath with an understanding of the health system, I decided to email my questions to the clinic. A stoic reply ensued to say that the doctor was purely employed for an accident compensation assessment to see whether I could work again. So I wrote a letter back. "Thank you so much for your response. I would like to give you some feedback to pass on to the doctor if you wouldn't mind." During the appointment, he had not read my case notes nor used my name. My questions were left unanswered, and I think it would be best practice for further clients if you realise that you are not living the lives of the numbers on your worksheets. We are not numbers. We are people with families and feelings who want to get better. We are not a list of symptoms that you tick in boxes. In the future, I hope you treat people with the dignity they deserve when they are navigating their health problems. That week, I complained to my physio about the specialist and the fact that a year later my neck and knee still weren't right. She blinked. "What? Your knee isn't right? We've been working so much on your neck and back that I totally forgot about your knee. What's wrong with it again?" To be totally fair, I'd only mentioned it in the first session, and in the meantime, we had been working on the neck issues for months. Immediately, I was referred for an MRI. They found a torn meniscus and grade 3, something else with a Baker cyst, a fluid-filled growth behind the knee, and something else that showed I shouldn't have been running during my rehabilitation at all. Months of aching legs and painkillers, and they finally found the reason. Keyhole surgery was prescribed, and the last puzzle pieces were put into place. Tools, intuition. Nobody else is living inside your body. If you feel that something is off and the advice, medication, or treatment is not working, do not be scared to push back on specialists to find answers. Most practitioners are working from a book of symptoms or experience in other people's journey. Don't forget your inner voice in this process, and always ask questions when you feel the treatment is not working for you. tools, advocacy within the system. When you are dealing with the health system, most of the time you are a number. If you realize this, then it's easier to navigate the journey. For all appointments, prepare questions before you attend. Make a list of your current symptoms so that you can ask questions. If you can, research your symptoms so that you can understand what may be causing the problem. Always take an advocate with you who can be your voice if suddenly you get overwhelmed during the appointment. Ask for blood work and further investigation to find the why. If your medication is not doing its job, tell your practitioner. If you suddenly develop new symptoms or those you have do not abate with medication, tell your practitioner. Chapter 14, Finding Your Place. A house is made of bricks and beams. A home is made of hopes and dreams. Ralph Waldo Emerson. It was March 2021, almost a year since the concussion. And I was ready to get back into society again. Regular exercise, clean eating, and rehabilitation was automated, and I prayed that the perfect job would appear. And it did. I had decided to return to natural health, inspired by what I had learnt about the brain. I was so nervous when interviewed for a job with a non-government organisation for a health coach role. I wanted to be wanted. Divine timing intervened, and finally I received a job offer. The pay was a lot less than I had been paid in years, yet being employed was a gift on so many levels. The actual work was very easy from years of working as a naturopath, and it gave me purpose in the morning. In the first few weeks, the stress of getting out the door was immense because I was so used to being able to swan through my day when the children were at school. I had to be extremely disciplined about preparing my food, organising the children, fitting in my exercise in order to make it through the day well. But months of living like an army cadet served me well, because the routine of work created another structure in our lives. I would return home happy having helped other people, although exhausted. I was able to be my authentic self in an industry I loved. But during the first part of employment, I would go to bed extremely early and my headaches returned. What I learned, however, is that every new change could potentially reignite symptoms, and it was only time that would support the brain expansion. The role was working with people who also had health issues, so it enabled me to step outside of my own story and help others. I could also use my mental health journey and the rehabilitation lessons as a pivotal tool to teach other people how to navigate their own issues. I was able to be authentic in my interactions. People felt that they weren't alone and that perfect wasn't a goal. Progress was more important. I found on days when I ate badly, my symptoms would resurface. The days when I chose not to exercise, when I was sitting down at a computer for a long time, I would get headaches. When I had to drive a 90-minute round trip to a neighbouring town, I'd get aches in my body like the original injury. A pattern emerged of how my lifestyle impacted my health. The symptoms resurfacing were a beautiful reminder that the rehab journey works and it is ongoing. I will say that again. The rehab journey works and it is ongoing. Looking at the why and knowing the what can help reinforce permanent lifestyle changes. But as fate would have it, just after 8 weeks of working, my son suffered a bad concussion and was signed off school for 6 months. He did a front flip off a boat and cracked the top of his head. His moods were insatiable, and we spent a lot of time together in dark cupboards. However, this time, rather than falling victim to needing everybody else to fix him, I did the work alongside the specialists. I changed his diet, did the rehab alongside him, and held him close when the brain went haywire. I witnessed again the emotional instability of the brain being injured. But because of my own journey, I was able to understand where he was. And rather than entirely relying on the specialists, I was able to support his rehabilitation journey. Although my son was the most important thing in my life at that time, I knew for myself I needed to have some kind of work distraction separate from the problems. I contacted the non government organisation who had employed me as the health coach originally and suggested I could create a workplace health program for the staff, using my naturopathy, nutrition, and fitness skills to help the people who were helping others. I could work 2 days on site, and the rest of the time I would support my son. They agreed, and I was able to find a balance between my family and work for the first time ever. For 2 years, I worked for the organisation, first helping those in the community, then creating a wellness program for the staff, serving up to 14 clients in a day with diverse health issues. And the superpower of the concussion journey was that every person who walked in the door, somehow I understood them, because in some way I had been there too. The foundations of who I was before the injury had found a beautiful ikigai, a sense of purpose, and a reason for living. Thank you for listening to Growth Happens in the Dirt. I hope that this helps you in some way. It's now available on Amazon in paperback and in Kindle. Have a great day and keep shining.